welcome back to my channel. In this video I'd like to show you how I made this quite classic here in Germany, at least it's quite a classic style of cake with the strawberries on top and some marzipan wrapping, and we also have some gluten-free chocolate layers in there, so yeah, keep on watching for that. The first thing though we're going to do is prepare our German buttercream. So for that you need some liquid of your choice, which could be milk, it could be water, it could be juice, which in my case it is juice, it's some orange juice. And dry ingredients I'm whisking together here are some sugar and cornstarch and also some egg yolks, so nothing special. After you whisked together your dry ingredients and your egg yolks, you're going to bring your liquid up to a boil, which I'm doing right here, and as it starts to boil you take out some of the hot liquid and pour it very slowly but whisking constantly into your dry ingredients to temper your egg yolks so they don't scramble when you pour them in the hot liquid. So after you poured a few drops of the hot liquid into your egg yolk mixture, you're going to put everything back into the hot liquid, as you saw I did, and you're going to boil this, let it boil, bubbly boil for around 1 minute, and after that 1 minute you can take it off the stove and pour it on some platter or any sort of dish with which is very shallow. There you go, that was tricky for me. After you poured it on there, try to flatten it out and then cover it with some baking paper or saran wrap, anything, and let it cool completely. But don't put it in the fridge though, just let it cool. For the chocolate layer cake we're doing here, which is very tender, very delicate, you need some marzipan, you also need some egg yolks, you need the egg whites, so try to divide your eggs in egg yolks and egg whites obviously, and you also need some salt and some cocoa powder, but we're going to talk about that later. So as you see right here, I try to cut my marzipan into very small pieces, and now I'm going to whisk and mash it a little bit together with some of my egg yolks. Don't pour all the egg yolks in it at once, because if you pour them in at once you probably can't break up the marzipan very nicely, but that's what you have to do. So pour a little bit in, smash it a little bit, and then you can put it in your kitchen, in your KitchenAid, whatever, in your machine. Let it whisk, and then after a few minutes you pour in the rest of the egg yolks, and then you let it whisk and whip for around 10 to 15 minutes so it gets very nice and fluffy and frothy, and the marzipan just gets very nice. So that's around 15 minutes later for me. Now you're gonna switch your whisk and your attachment, and we're gonna whip up the egg whites, which is, I think everyone knows how that's done. When you whisk up your egg whites, be sure that they are at room temperature, and see that you have a very nice clean bowl. That's very important. So get them nice and frothy, whisk them up nicely, put some a sprinkle of the salt in there. That helps also with the building of the volume of your egg whites, and then just whisk them away. Let them have a few moments and as they become nice and frothy, you slowly but surely add all your sugar in there, and then you just let them whip a little bit more until they're very nice and stiff, yada yada. You all know the difference and the process for whipping up egg whites, I guess. As you do that, you can see in the reflection I prepped some of my how do you say those, what do you call them, baking sheets. Prep those, put some parchment paper on them and have them at the side. So let's combine all of our ingredients and make it a very nice chocolate layer. So first thing you do is take a little bit of your egg white and put it into your egg yolk marzipan mixture, and fold them in carefully, very nicely, gently, so you don't break the foam, I think that's nothing new for you. And you do that in 2 to 3 portions, not all at once, so gently into 1 to 2 portions. Fold it in, and after you folded it in, you take your cocoa powder and sift it on top of it, and then fold it in as well. And it's very important that you don't use the instant cocoa powder that you would use to make drinking chocolate. So this is very important. You need basic cocoa powder without any added sugar or anything. Plain, pure cocoa powder, which is, if you taste it as it is, it's very bitter, kind of bitter, not very sweet, and that's exactly what you want. So please don't use Nesquik or any... use the real stuff, please. That's very important. After you folded your cocoa powder into your batter, you're actually done. Pretty easy. I know, no flour, no nothing, no cornstarch, nothing. You divide the batter into two portions, and then you pour them onto your parchment paper and spread the batter very evenly. If you have some sort of springform tin, that's the best way to use it, and that's how I learned to do it, and now that's how I do it, as you can see right here. So spread it in your ring, then lift the ring up, put it over on top of your other batter, then spread it evenly again, and then you put it in the oven and bake it for 10 to 15 minutes. No, the batter won't leak or run anywhere because they are baked at a very high temperature, so they bake right away and they don't get liquid and run all over your oven, so don't be scared for that. Everything's gonna be fine. So bake them 10 to 15 minutes, and after you pull them out, they're gonna be a bit jiggly and a bit fluffy, but they'll deflate as they cool down, and that's what you have to do. Let them cool down completely, that's very important, and after they are cooled down completely, we can take care of them later. So let them sit there, let them wait. As they are waiting to get the show on again, we finish our German buttercream. So the pudding we cooked earlier is now completely cooled. It's at room temperature, and what I'm also doing on the left hand side is I'm whipping up my room temperature butter. So whip it up very nicely until it's nice and light and fluffy and pretty white as the color changes, as you know. Just whip it up nicely, and after you whipped it up for 1 to 2 minutes, not that long, you pour in, or you scoop in your pudding, the pudding we prepped earlier. Scoop it in and then let it whip and let it whisk away until it's very nice and fluffy, and you have a very nice combined sort of German buttercream. Very, very easy. It's very important that all your ingredients are at room temperature. If the pudding is too cold and you put it in the refrigerator, the cream is going to be very, very hard. So see that all your ingredients are at room temperature when you combine the cream to have a nice buttercream. That's very important. So as the buttercream is done now, we are starting to assemble our cake. So I took off my parchment paper, off of my chocolate layer, cake layer thingy, and applied around half of my buttercream on top of my chocolate layer. And at that point I realized, oh wait, hold on, I wanted to do it in a heart shape, so thanks for me. I didn't pay that much attention, so I made a little mistake, which is okay, it's fine. You could also cut the layers in a heart-shaped cake before you layer them up like I do here, which would be a lot easier. You could also try to spread them out before you bake them into a nice heart shape, and then trim them so you have a nice exact heart shape. That's just see what works best for you. As long as they are layered up very nicely with the cream, you're good to go. So layer your chocolate cake with your cream, make it quite even so it looks nice. And what I did after I forgot, to cut my layer cakes, I did that afterwards. So that's what I'm doing here. I just took some parchment paper, cut it into a heart shape, and now I'm cutting my cake, which is fine. Everything worked out fine, so if you make the same mistakes, it's fine, no problem at all. It's because normally I bake those cakes in a round circle, as you saw me do, so I wasn't thinking about making them in a heart shape, but as you see, it's no problem at all. I left a little bit of my cream over so I can spread that on top again and on the edges, so when you spread it on the edges, the marzipan can stick a lot nicer, and you don't need to glue everything on with any other cream. You just apply the cream very nice and thin layer around the heart shape, and then the marzipan is going to stick very nicely. You also don't need to make it perfect and even, since the marzipan is going around it and the strawberries are going on top. So if it's not completely perfect and you have some flaws, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. No one's gonna see them. So as you see right here, I washed my strawberries and cut off the green top. And now I'm going to just stack them, see that they are very nice and tightly together, so we don't have any holes between the strawberries. If you do have some holes, which I did, I cut some strawberries into quarters and then stuck the quarters in between the gaps, so everything looks a bit nicer and more tied together. After I was done with my strawberry part, I took some of my marzipan, rolled it into a pretty thick and nice long, what do you say this is, into a rope kind of, applied some cornstarch on my table and then rolled it out very nice and thin so I can wrap it around my cake. Of course I trimmed it and then I applied some sort of marks to make it look a bit more special. See what you can do, but please don't make the mistake and use fondant on top of the buttercream, because this kind of buttercream is unfortunately not suitable for fondant, because the fondant is gonna melt if it gets in contact with the buttercream. So yeah, just keep that in mind. It won't work. I tried it and it won't work. The fondant is gonna melt and then you have a very big mess. So yeah. As you see, I just cut my marzipan into kind of a better, nice and even strip, cut off the edges, trim it very nicely, and then I just rolled it around my cake, which is also quite easy. You could use some modeling chocolate if you have that on hand. Instead of fondant or marzipan, you could use some modeling chocolate. That would work pretty nicely in my opinion. So after my marzipan was wrapped around my cake, I cooked up some, what do you say, how do you call that, some fruit glaze. I don't know how to say that in English. In German it's called Tortenguss, so kind of a glaze which we have pre-packaged. It's a kind of powder you cook up with some water. I'm pretty sure you can do that with some kind of cornstarch, and then, I don't know, just try to see if you can make some kind of glaze to pour on top of your strawberries. If you don't like that, just leave it out completely. You don't actually really need the glaze, but that's what we here in Germany typically do when we have some kind of fruit cake. Pour over some glaze to make it stick nicely together and make it a bit more shiny. But my strawberries were beautiful as they were, so I guess it's not very that necessary. But if you want to do that, or I would actually suggest you do that, because when you cut into the cake and you have some sort of glaze or anything on top of the strawberries, everything sticks a bit nicely, a bit better together. So when you cut into the cake, all the strawberries won't fall on top of your plate instead of, sticking on top of the cake. If you get what I'm trying to say here. So yeah, but see what works for you. After I applied the glaze, I sprinkled on some pistachios, because that's what we do here. When we have some sort of strawberry cake, there's always pistachios involved to sprinkle on top. And I also made a little sign with some leftover marzipan and wrote with the edible pen "Mom" on top. So quite easy. Okay, that's it. Man, this was difficult. Today this was very difficult for me. I'm excited to see what you have to say. Leave it in the comments below, and we'll see each other in the next video. Bye.